Okay, hi, my name is Michael. I am a BookTube newbie, and this is the BookTube Newbie Tag, so we're going to get right into it. Question one is, why did you start this channel? I'm starting this for the same reason that you started your channel, if you have one, which is that it looks like a lot of fun. The reason why I'm finally starting this channel after years now of watching BookTube and kind of thinking in the back of my head that I wanted to start my own channel is because my desire to start it has finally grown greater than all of the excuses for not starting one, all of the apprehensions about starting one, the worries that, is anyone actually going to watch? Am I going to be motivated to keep going once I start? Now I've realized it finally just feels like time to dive in and see what happens. So here I am. Question two is, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to BookTube? I could say that my taste runs kind of atypical to the average booktuber, in that I'm more of a nonfiction reader. I'm not so much into fantasy. I've got no problem with fantasy, but I've noticed in watching some recent BookTube videos that that still tends to dominate the scene. So I guess my taste makes me unique, but the actual fun and unique things that I can bring to BookTube, one of them is sitting right here. This is Rosie. And the other two things, Ajax and Bluebell, are elsewhere in the house right now, probably in their beds. And I think we can all agree, if we're being honest with ourselves, those are the actual things that you will come to this channel for. So I'll be sure to give them some camera time in the future. Question three is, what are you most excited for about this new channel? I'm excited to connect with other readers, just to make videos, and hopefully to connect with some of the booktubers that I've come to really enjoy watching in the past 6 or 7 years now. Question four, why do you love reading? I've thought a lot about this just in the past week or so of watching these BookTube Newbie Tag videos, and I've realized that I don't go to books for escapism necessarily. I think I go to movies more for that. And I don't even go to books just for education, just to learn things. It's nice when a book can teach you something, but the real reason I read, and the thing that I hope to get out of every book that I read, whether it be fiction or nonfiction, is I want a vicarious experience, I guess. I want the author to give me an experience that I can't get somewhere else. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a positive or negative one. It just needs to be a rich and detailed enough experience that I feel enriched by the time I'm done with the book. So it can be a book like, John Hersey's Hiroshima, or Primo Levi's Survival in Auschwitz. Those are two experiences that you would not want to go through, and that you probably wouldn't want to know exactly what they're like, but you feel enriched for having gone through them, and you might not enjoy the experience the same way that you would enjoy a fantasy novel or a romance novel, but you you feel better. You feel just enriched as a person for having gone through it, and that's kind of what I hope to get out of every new book that I start. And so that's, I mean, to put it in just a few words, I go to books for a rich experience, I guess. Question 5 is, what book or series got you into reading? Well, I started reading when I was pretty young. Like a lot of you, my first books were picture books, Dr. Seuss, the Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, Would You Rather Be a Bullfrog? But and then from that point on, I moved to comics, basically. Dave Pilkey's books, Captain Underpants and Super Diaper Baby, that kind of thing. Around the same time, got into Calvin and Hobbes through the paperback collections, and I think I might have had a couple of Far Side collections too, which at 7 or 8 years old were a little over my head, but I still like the drawings. And then the first proper book that I got into, it's a very distinct memory. I walked into my 5th grade English class for the first time, and on the shelf was a copy of Suzanne Collins' Gregor the Overlander. And I remember just staring at that cover art, which is not a particularly striking cover when you think about it. It's just like a cityscape, towers and things like that, and just being so struck by it and just thinking, like, I want to read that. I don't know what it's about, but like, that is the next book I'm going to read. And I did, and just became a huge fan of that series. Waited on each new entry to come out. Fought with my friends over who was going to get to check out the next one when it came to our library. And when I finished that, surprisingly, it didn't lead me that much further into fantasy. I think after that I went straight on to, just straight up, grown-up books. Pretty soon after that, I would have read Of Mice and Men, Catcher in the Rye, George Orwell, and then after that point, I was just on my way to adult, fiction. But yeah, the first book, series, author, I guess would have been Dr. Seuss. The next two questions kind of go hand in hand, so I guess I'll just knock them both out. They're, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers, and what are the challenges that you expect from starting this channel? And I have gotten to ask a lot of my favorite booktubers questions because they do Q&As pretty regularly. Steve Donahue, for example, I have asked lots of questions to over the years because he has very generously done lots of Q&As. But the main question that I have is for booktubers in general, is how do you stay motivated to keep going? Because that is the main challenge that I've expected from this whole endeavor. Is I've worried that I'll make a couple of videos and just lose interest. I'll stop for whatever reason and then not feel like coming back. And I'm hoping that just the whole process of making the videos, uploading them, hopefully receiving some comments, some interaction with you all watching, will be enough to keep me going. And the more I think about it, that that by itself can be enough. I've been on YouTube a long time. I've been watching YouTube since about 2006, and I started my first channel in 2007, and have had a couple of channels in that time. And I can remember, just when I uploaded my first video and got my first comment and replied to my first comment and got a reply back, that little buzz that you get, from making that connection with someone, that by itself is enough to keep you going. And I'm really excited to get back to that. Let's see. Question 8 is, when did you start reading? I would have started reading in, pre-K, I guess. I mean, I first started reading when I was 3 or 4. Question 9 is, where do you read? I read here on the couch, in bed, or on the back porch. I'm not really picky about that. And question 10 is, what kind of books do you like to read? Well, I've said already that I prefer nonfiction. At one point I used to read one fiction book and one nonfiction book at the same time. But then as time has gone on, I would say that I read 3 or 4 nonfiction books for every fiction one that I read. But then when I was checking Goodreads just recently, I realized that I haven't read a proper novel in over a year. So it seems like nonfiction lately has pretty well taken over. And in terms of nonfiction, I like history, biography, I like essays, I like memoirs, which are, sort of novelistic, I guess. I like books by journalists. I like film criticism. I like books about technology. Not necessarily the hard side of technology, but the more social side of it. Books about the internet, and television. Books about social media and kind of like their effect on people. But the fiction that I do read is kind of a mix. I read a lot of what you would call literary fiction, just like straight up novels. But also some genre fiction, some crime novels, especially of the hard-boiled variety, hard case crime, that kind of stuff. A decent amount of science fiction, a decent number of comics and graphic novels, but mostly nonfiction. I think it's mainly going to be nonfiction that we're going to be dealing with. And question 11 is, what does your book collection look like? That's going to have to be a separate video, because my book collection at the moment is made up of a couple of boxes in the closet right now. And so I'm thinking for the next video we'll go through those, and that'll be kind of like a book shelf tour, or book box tour rather. And that's going to be it for the BookTube Newbie Tag. I hope this has piqued your interest, and I hope you stick around and see what comes next. So, thank you for watching.